Good morning and welcome to Daily Red Devil for all of your latest Manchester United transfer news and talk. And as always, we're back with another massive show to bring you guys this morning. But before we jump into that, please do make sure to smash a like on the video and please do subscribe to the channel, bottom right hand corner. We're on the road to 21,000 subscribers. We're only about 100 away, so please go and do that. Before we get into today's news, I just wanted to say a big congratulations to Diogo Dalot and his partner on the birth of their baby girl. So congratulations to them. Obviously, he dropped out of the international duty for Portugal in the last couple of days because of that. But yeah, they have now had the child. So congratulations to them. Lots of other stuff to get into on the show this morning, of course. We will be talking a little bit about the Sir Jim Ratcliffe £250 million stadium plan. And we're also going to be talking about a shock story that came out last night saying that it's ultimately breaking down how much each party will get for this 25% takeover from Sir Jim Ratcliffe, how much money will be involved in it. So we're going to get into that as well. And I think, these are the bits of information that we've been missing for so long. There's so many cracks in this deal that we're all trying to stay positive. We're all trying to be realistic, okay? Which I get. And that's positive. That's how it should be, we should try and stay positive. But there's still so many question marks. And this story that came out last night, we'll talk about this first, actually, because I'm already talking about it. So the story came out from The Telegraph in the UK. I think it was from James Ducker. Let me just double check. Yes. So it's from James Ducker, The Telegraph. He's a good journalist. He is the Northern football correspondent for The Telegraph. And his main focus of a job is Manchester United and Man City. Those are the two clubs that he reports on. 300,000 followers on Twitter. I think he's a reliable source. He's a journalist that I think, he's not like somebody who works for The Sun or one of those. It's a man who literally just reports on Man City and Man United, and that's it. And I think those are the types of ones you should always maybe pay a little bit more attention to than the kind of tabloids where they're just putting out random headlines to get, to sell newspapers. So he was talking last night about how this 25% deal is actually going to work and how much money that each different parties are going to get. Now, this has completely blown open my head this morning. It has. Obviously, for those of you who don't know, the Glazers currently own 69% of Manchester United, right? The other 31% of the club is owned by non-Glazer shareholders. So that would be hedge funds, investment banks. It's available on the New York Stock Exchange. So me or you could go on our computer now, go on the internet and buy stocks in Manchester United. There's 31% of the club is available to anybody to buy on the internet, right? On the stock exchange. Now, he's explained that this is how the deal is going to work. So obviously they're buying, Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos are buying 25% of the stakes total, okay? The Glazers own 69 and there's 31 on the New York Stock Exchange. There's quite a lot of numbers and stuff in this, so I'm just going to try and, I apologise if it sounds like I'm being patronising. I'm not purposely doing it. I'm just trying to explain it slowly and clearly so everybody understands what we're talking about here. So he was reporting last night that apparently the Glazers will only receive around £650 million from the sale of their Class B shares to Jim Ratcliffe. Okay? 650 million. He then goes on to say that the other half of the estimated 1.3 billion will go to non-Glazer related shareholders. Right? So obviously we know that the total amount he's paying is around 1.3 for 25%, 1.3 billion. But if you work that out, right, it looks like the Glazers will only be selling about somewhere between about 10 and maybe to 12% of their shares, because half of the shares are going to be bought off the Glazers and the other half of the shares are going to be bought off the New York Stock Exchange, making a total of 25% shares. So to summarize this for all the people that don't care about all the maths and all of the small details, the Glazers are only selling around 10 to 12% of their shares, meaning they'll still own, they own 69%. So if they were to sell 10, they'd own 59% still. If they were to sell 12, they'd own 57%. So do you see where I'm going with this, right? They're still going to own, let's just for simpleness, they're still going to own over 50% of Manchester United at the very, very minimum, probably closer to 60%, whereas Sir Jim Ratcliffe will own 25% and there'll be about 25%, 20% left on the New York Stock Exchange. So all of those people who are like, oh, the Glazers are selling 25% of the club, it's really good, it's really positive. Well, they're not. They're only selling 12.5% of their shares. And the other bit is available on the New York Stock Exchange. Anybody could go and buy those shares now. They don't need the Glazers' permission to buy those shares. So it's It's rattled me a little bit this morning because I'm thinking, if they're only selling £650 million worth of their shares, that's what, about, let's say 100 million per Glazer, the 6 Glazers, 650 divided by 6, let's say 108 million pounds each. And they're only getting rid of probably roughly 1.5 to 2% of their individual shares, if there's 6 of them. There has to be some exit plan. There does, because that's such a small amount. I mean, if they've still got, 60%, right? Does that mean that he's going to have to do this like another 5 times? Is he going to have to buy 12.5 off them another 5 times every year for the next 5 years? Like, that's what we have to hope's happening, because if it is just going to be this and the Glazers stay with 60%, Sir Jim has 25, and then, there's 15% or so left on the New York Stock Exchange, like that's not going to help us. It's not. It really, really isn't. I've tried to be quite positive about this in the last couple of days, because it just became obvious that Sheikh Jassim Qatar was completely out of the race and it was done for. And I've just tried to be a bit more positive. I've been excited about the fact that John Murtagh and Richard Arnold are going. I've been excited about the fact that Paul Mitchell and Jean-Claude Blanc are coming in. But when you get stories like this, this is the first one that's come out, by the way, where it actually breaks down how the sale of this 25% is going to work. Because I think I seen somebody on Sky Sports yesterday, right? And let me just explain this. There's a guy, I can't remember what his name is, but he's just written a book about the Glazers. I think it's called The World's Biggest Cash Machine. Let me have a look. Yeah. So it's called The World's Biggest Cash Machine. I haven't actually read it, but I might read this book. So there's a book by this guy called Chris Blackhurst, and they had him on Sky Sports News yesterday. He's just written a book called The World's Biggest Cash Machine, Manchester United. So it's about the Glazers. And he was being asked about the whole takeover thing, and he kept referencing the fact that the Glazers were selling 25%. The Glazers were selling 25%. He kept saying it over and over and over again. And I was thinking, I don't think they are selling 25%, mate. I think they're buying some of these New York Stock Exchange shares. So there's a lot of people in the media who seem to not actually be reporting it like that. They're saying, oh, Jim's buying 25%, this is great. This is going in the right direction. But when you actually look at the finite bits of the deal, which we're actually now starting to get, they're not selling 25%. They're selling about 12.5%. So it's all a little bit confusing, to be honest with you. And I'm glad that more stories are starting to come out and out and out. But yeah, I just think it is a little bit worrying. Let's see what people are saying in the chat this morning. Hope everyone is good. Sorry, I was a little bit late this morning. I do apologise if anyone was here at 8:30. Let's have a look. Fan says, does it matter if it's 10% or 25%? The Glazers will still have the final say anyway. Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. Gabrielle says, so Jim went from 100% to 70%, 50% to 25% to 10%. Yeah, I mean, it's embarrassing, isn't it? Praise Sasha says, I think it's a good idea. Fair enough. Let me know why you think it's a good idea. I'll read that out. What else we got? Malp says, we're Business United FC. Sean says Glazers will own 56.5% of the club. So Sean says Glazers will own 56.5%. New York Stock Exchange will earn 18.5%. Sir Jim Ratcliffe will own 25%. Yeah, there you go. Adrian says, where is the evidence that Ratcliffe was going to progressively buy additional shares? Is this just fan-driven news? Was going to progressively buy additional shares. Well, that's what we're waiting to hear. We're waiting for the finite details to come out on how much, he's going to buy over a longer period of time. That's what we need to know, because when you get stuff like this coming out, I just think it's a little bit, I just think it's a bit concerning. I do. Like, as Keith says, 12%. I mean, it's like all you can do is laugh, really, isn't it? They own 69% at the moment, and they're only selling 12% of their shares. Like, it's gone from this carrot being dangled in front of our faces of 100% ownership, all the debt gone, the Glazers gone 100%, to the Glazers staying and selling 12%. I mean, that's taken us a year. Absolutely ridiculous. Somebody says, how he buy a portion of the public shares for a premium? Is that illegal? I'm not sure. I don't know how the New York Stock Exchange works, to be honest. I don't really do any of that kind of stuff. The Unlimited says 12% gets him a corner flag. Yes. PMD says, Kieran, but consider this. Each Glazer holds about a 10% stake. The family owns 69%. It's not 60, it's 69% collectively. When Sir Jim Ratcliffe gets his 25%, he'll become the single largest shareholder and technically the owner. Yeah, but the thing is, mate, the Glazers are almost like one collective, aren't they? There's 6 of them who will all vote together, probably on the same thing. So if you've got 6 people who own 10% each voting against one person who owns 25%, like, it doesn't work, does it? When there's one person's, when the Glazers' message is to make money and business, and Jim Ratcliffe is going to try and bring the footballing side back, if they're voting against each other, like, how is that going to work? Benny says nothing concrete yet. It's still all speculation. Hopefully in the next few days, hopefully an announcement on Bloomberg and the stock market. Sir Jim's team put a great spin on things. Yeah, they have done. Over the last week or so, I've been feeling really, really positive about all of this. I have. Carl says they were never going anywhere. I agree. Gabrielle says, so the Glazers aren't going to be gone in 3 years. I have a feeling, this is just my opinion, so don't take this to the bank, but I have a feeling that it's going to be like, if they're selling 12.5% of their shares now, right? And they'll still own about 57%. I think it will be like a 5-year plan, where over the next 5 years he'll buy 12.5% of the shares off them for the next 5 years. It'll have to be something like that. But we'll have to wait and see. Graham says, I hate to say it, but I'd rather go through relegation again before I see them milking our club anymore. Yeah, I mean, we're not going to win anything, are we? So I kind of agree with you in some ways. What else we got? Gabriel says, so in theory, Jim buys out all 6 of the Glazers. Yeah, well, I mean, eventually that's what we're hoping he does. But at the moment, there's no clarity on whether that's actually going to happen. All we know is that, just to summarise that bit of the show before we move on, all we know today is that 12.5% of the shares will be bought from the Glazers and 12.5% of the shares will be bought from the New York Stock Exchange, which means that the Glazers will be left with around 57% of the ownership of Manchester United, give or take. They currently own 69, so what's that? 56.5% they'll have. So, yeah, make of that what you will. I was felt a bit down reading that this morning, to be honest. I was a bit like, I don't know. It's still such a large amount to own of a football club, isn't it? For one family to own nearly 60%, even Jim owning 25%. I mean, it's not even half, is it? So anyway, let's move on with the rest of the story. Let's talk a little bit about Jim Ratcliffe's £250 million stadium plan. Now, before we get into what we think that plan's going to be, I was doing a bit of research this morning around how much other teams had spent on stadiums, because I thought, obviously, this is pretty important, because before we start talking about this, before we start looking at what Manchester United might do and what they could do, we need to kind of compare with what other stadiums and other clubs have done. So I think the best example here, just for people to kind of reference, is the Bernabeu, obviously in Real Madrid Stadium in Madrid. Now, that stadium obviously is one of the most iconic stadiums in the world, but like Old Trafford, it was, I wouldn't say it was as bad as Old Trafford, but it needed refreshing, let's say. Now, as of today, the stadium is finished. It looks unbelievable. If anybody hasn't seen the stadium, go and have a look on YouTube. It's unbelievable. It's state of the art. Like the pitch, they've got it all on these mechanical things, so it can go down and then they can turn. Honestly, just go and look at it. It's crazy. Like what they've done to that stadium is absolutely unbelievable. It's still the same stadium, but they've modernised it, and it looks unbelievable. So go and check out the new Bernabeu stadium. But the reason I bring this up, obviously, I'm not here to talk about Real Madrid, is because now that they've finished the stadium, it's been published how much money they've spent on the stadium since they started the renovations, and the bill that's being floated around is €1 billion was spent. I think it's around £850 million. Obviously, whenever this conversion was done, I don't know what the conversion rate is as of today, but around £1 billion will get you that new Bernabeu stadium, obviously the old one that's been modernised. So go and have a look at that to see if that's the kind of stadium you would like. For me, that looks unbelievable. Like that's what we should be aiming for. And Sir Jim Ratcliffe has apparently pledged £250 million towards the stadium. Now, we don't know exactly what that £250 million will get us. New roof, modernising the toilets. I know they obviously want to build an additional stand because they want to try and maximise revenue, which I think makes sense, because if you added, say, let's say you could add an extra 15,000 seats, right? Making it a 90,000 seater, which would be on level with Wembley then. 15,000 seats, right? £50 a ticket. That would be an extra £750,000 in ticket revenue per match day. Plus, obviously, then you've got to factor in all the money people will spend on drinks, food, merchandise. It could be as much as an extra £1.5 million, I'd say, each match day, just from increasing the stadium by about 15,000 people. Now, if you times that by, say, 30 home games, 1.5 times 30. You're looking at about £45 million extra per season in revenue. Unbelievable. Because in this same story on the Bernabeu website, they said that they estimated that it would change their revenue at the Bernabeu from about 100 million euros per year to 400 million euros a year because of what they've done to the stadium, because of its multi-purpose use. I think they do events there. I think they have corporate things there. I think they have big concerts there. You know, they've just like Tottenham have done. You know, you see Tottenham having like Beyonce play at their stadium, and they do the Super Bowl there, and they do all of these massive sporting events and music events even at the Tottenham stadium. And that's the kind of thing that, you know, I think Manchester United and the Glazers haven't really looked at properly, and it will be such a way of bringing in more money, more revenue into the business. So hopefully those are the types of things that we're looking at, because at the moment, like, you don't see much going on at Old Trafford, do you? Let's have a look at what people are saying in the chat. Somebody says, I wish Manchester United would build an indoor stadium. Yeah, maybe. Al says, do you think the cost of materials and labour are cheaper in Spain? Building in the UK is more expensive? I mean, it's possible. I will say this. I don't know how much it is to build a house or whatever in Spain, but I think since the Bernabeu was finished, the cost of materials worldwide has absolutely shot through the roof all around the world. So I imagine on a general level, however much money the Bernabeu were spending on the materials for their build, you know, 2, 3, 4 years ago when they started the project, I assume those materials now will be far more expensive because everything's more expensive, especially building materials. And yes, you are right. In general, the labour costs have gone up massively, especially in the UK. Like, the cost of labour is absolutely incredible now. If you were to, like, I don't know, call up a builder and say you wanted to get a loft conversion done, you know, 10 years ago, it would be about 20, 30 grand. Like, now they're quoting people £100,000 for loft conversions in the UK. Obviously, that's just an example, but yeah, the cost of everything has literally just gone through the roof. So yeah, I think you're probably right, mate. I think 250 million. I don't think it's going to get us very far, is my point here. But let me know what you guys think. The Unlimited says, Kieran, is there going to be any investment in the community around Manchester? Mate, we haven't even got into those types of things yet. I would imagine at this point, no. But obviously we don't know. Because I would say this, right? 250 million. If he had more money that he was willing to spend at this point, surely he would put more into it, you know? Surely the community bit is obviously very, very important, but the cost to do that stadium is going to be astronomical. I remember a couple of months ago, there was 3 different options that were presented to the Glazers. Option 1 was £1 billion, okay? £1 billion to get the stadium pretty much looking like the Bernabeu. So to make it the best stadium in the UK, but to still be the same bricks and mortar as what Old Trafford was or is. Now, the other option was $3 billion for a brand new stadium. You know, we're talking billions here. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I think it's all a little bit, I don't know. I wonder how much did Newcastle spend on their training ground? Let's have a look. I mean, this is a good... I mean, yeah, you look at that, right? So Newcastle United just spent 10 million on their training ground. They didn't build any new buildings. They just renovated it, and that cost them 10 million just for their training ground, just to make it look a little bit better and all the rest of it. I mean, that gives you a bit more of a perspective of how much things are going to cost. Taiwu says, Old Trafford is outdated and extremely old. We need a new and futuristic stadium. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, obviously there was the big debate about whether people wanted a new stadium or wanted Old Trafford to stay. My view was always that I thought they should build a new stadium in the Old Trafford car park, because there's lots of land around Old Trafford where we could easily build a new stadium, but then also keep Old Trafford, use that for the women's team, maybe make it a bit smaller, use it, you know, take one of the stands off so it's a little bit smaller, use it for the women's team, use it for the under-21s, and then also have music events there, museum tours, you know. So you've got this constant revenue source then. So you could always have big music events going on there. You could have, I don't know, you could have all sorts, corporate things. Like, people want to come to Old Trafford, but I don't think that's going to happen, you know. It's going to be trying to make Old Trafford better again. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. What was your preferred option? Did you want a brand new stadium, or did you want Old Trafford to be refurbished? Al says, do we need new training facilities? Well, I think Carrington definitely needs a bit of an upgrade. Obviously the women's team have just got their own and the under-21s have got their own training facility now, which has just been built, so that's really good. I'm happy about that. That was announced a couple of months ago. If anybody didn't see that, type it in on Google. Let me see if I can find the link for you New women's training facilities. It looks pretty cool. Like, I don't think it looks world class, but it looks quite decent. Yeah, so it's on the Manchester United website. It's called. So the headline is Elite Facility opens for the United Women and Academy. So they've opened next to Carrington a separate training centre for the women and for the under 21s. Like, from the pictures I've saw of it, like, I don't know, it doesn't look that great, to be honest. It doesn't look much better than a gym you could go to for £20 a month in where I live. So I don't know. I mean, it's better than nothing though. We can't complain about everything. Let's have a look. Joe says Newcastle are lucky to have that kind of owner. Franco says Kieran, Jim Ratcliffe should just use that money to improve the training facilities. Yeah, I think so. I think 250 million is more the kind of money to build a stadium for the women's team and the under 21s, because they don't have a stadium or a proper stadium, to invest heavily in Carrington. Like, that sounds more realistic, but obviously we'll have to wait and see. Maybe he's going to gradually, maybe it'll be 250 million this year, 250 next year, 250 the year after. Like, we don't know. If it's 250 and that's it, I think we're literally going to get nothing. He might fix the roof and, replace the toilets that are leaking everywhere. But other than that, I think we're going to be a little bit stuck. Right, let's crack on with the rest of the show, though. Everyone who's just joined in the last couple of minutes, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, on the road to 21,000 subscribers. So big ups to all of you. I also, as well, wanted to say a massive, massive happy birthday to this man right here, Mr. Paul Scholes. It is Paul Scholes' birthday today. One of, if not my favourite Manchester United players of all time, as you can see with my my frame shirt I've got here, the Paul Scholes signed shirt. So yeah, big ups to Paul Scholes. Happy birthday to him. I don't know how old he is, but I know it's his birthday today. Let's have a look. How old do we reckon he is? 50? Yeah, 49 he is today. So happy 49th birthday to Paul Scholes. Absolute legend. Love Paul Scholes. So yeah, good. Yeah, everybody wish Paul Scholes a happy birthday in the comment section. Right, let's crack on with the rest of the show, though. So obviously yesterday's news was that Richard Arnold is gone. John Murtaugh's on the brink of going. And it looks like Paul Mitchell and Jean-Claude Blanc will be the new CEO and the new director of football, which I'm super, super happy about. Really, really excited about that. I think it's the two right people for the job. I think it's going to send us in the right direction. And I think it's a really, really positive bit of news to kind of start Jim Ratcliffe's reign into the club. All we need now is the official announcement from Manchester United and the official details. What I'm hoping for is that we get a proper interview with somebody, whether that's with Gary Neville on the overlap, whether that's with, definitely not Piers Morgan. I don't know who it would be with, but like I imagine that Manchester United will try and do it with like an ex-Manchester United legend, Sir Jim Ratcliffe being interviewed by somebody like that. And I just hope that in the interview we get all of the answers that we need. And it's not just like left open-ended and we're just sat here waiting for months and months or even years to find out exactly what's going to happen. Like, that's the worst case scenario, because I think the uncertainty has been the worst bit of this situation. For all we know, right, Jim Ratcliffe might be announced today and they might say the Glazers will be gone in 12 months. Like, that could happen. Nobody knows. It is a possibility. But us being us, all of you, I'm sure some of you have probably are older than me and have supported Manchester United for a lot longer. Anybody who knows how the Glazers operate will be very, very apprehensive about this, will be very concerned and will not trust them. So until we actually get 100% confirmation, I think we're right to be a bit concerned and worried, but obviously it's just not great, is it? Let's see what else people are saying in the chat. Richie says, Scholes was on the Webby and O'Neill channel yesterday with some great thoughts and comments. Yeah, I did see that. I haven't watched it yet, but I will go and watch that later. I watched their interview with Gary Neville the other day, which was good. So yeah, I like that channel a lot. If anybody's not seen that channel, Webby and O'Neill, definitely worth checking out. Yeah, they get some really good guests on there, really good content. Yeah, it's kind of similar to this. They're just giving their opinions. They're not making out to know more than anybody else. It's just a place where Manchester United fans can come together and have a chat, really. And I think that's the good thing about YouTube and about the internet, really. It's, we can all come together, we can all share opinions. Nobody's better than someone else, and I like that. Owen says, I'd prefer a new stadium. Fair enough. Morton also wants a new stadium. Ryan says, I think Old Trafford should be rebuilt. So there's quite a lot of people with different opinions. Al says, would you be happy for a stadium renovation if it added another 800 million to the club debt? No, definitely not, mate. That would be, we'd be like 2 billion in debt then. No way. This money needs to come from Jim Ratcliffe, whether it becomes, Ineos sponsor the stadium or something. As long as it's always called Old Trafford, I've got no issue with it. If the Ineos logo's plastered all over it, in the inside, where the Adidas bit is, that's fine. I've got no issue with that, as long as it's still called Old Trafford. But when you look at the amount of money that Ineos has, right? Like, let's have a look. Ineos revenue, or 2023. So in 2023, Ineos's revenue was 61 billion in 1 year. Obviously, that's not profit, that's revenue, but 61 billion revenue in 1 year. Their profit for 2023, well, let's look for 2022 because it's not been 2023 yet, is it? Their profit for 2022 was 2.6 billion euros. The year before that was 3.5. So they're making serious money. When you think Manchester United are losing money every single year, to be making 2.6 billion in 1 year profit and then 3.5 billion the year before, they could easily invest 800 million of their own money into building a new stadium. If they believe they're going to own Manchester United for the next 10, 20, 30, 50 years, they'll do that. If they're just coming in just to get a little piece of the pie, then obviously they won't do that. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that one. Let's have a look what people are saying quickly. Paul says this Blanc that might be coming. Paul says this John Paul Blanc guy, this John Paul Blanc, I can't get my words out today. This Blanc guy that might be coming organised all the finances for the new Juventus stadium, and it's very impressive. There you go. Carlos says at least the Super League won't happen now that new laws have been put into place. That's positive. Fred says a new stadium is a pipe dream under the Glazers. Yes, I would agree with you on that one, mate. And the Unlimited says Ineos Arena pending. I mean, if that happens, there'll be protests, there'll be riots. People would be that would be terrible. But yeah, I'm going to wrap the video up here, guys. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined me on the show this morning. I think we're going to get lots and lots of news over the next kind of week or so. We will, of course, keep going live as soon as something breaks. So do make sure you subscribe and make sure you hit the notification bell. And please do smash a like on the video before you go. It really helps to bring more people into the channel. Thank you so much to everyone who's watched today. I will be back live at 6 p.m. UK time. So do make sure you're around for that. Have a lovely morning, day, evening, wherever you are in the world. And I'll speak to you all a bit later.